The Atlantic Ocean doesn't care about your rank, doesn't care about your training, your medals, or how many times you've proven yourself. At 3 in the morning, 30 miles from any coastline, it's just black water and gravity, pulling you down toward a darkness that swallows everything. Captain Elena Reeves knew this. She'd trained for it, drilled for it, survived simulations that would break most operators. But training happens in controlled environments, with safety divers and emergency protocols. This was different. She was on her knees on the deck of a rusted cargo freighter, hands zip-tied behind her back, ankles shackled to a cinder block that smelled like diesel and decay. Her left eye was swollen half shut from where they'd slammed her face into a bulkhead 2 days ago. Blood crusted the corner of her mouth. 3 ribs on her right side screamed with every breath. And they were laughing. Not the nervous laughter of men uncomfortable with violence. This was genuine amusement, entertainment. 6 Russian crew members stood in a semicircle, smoking cigarettes, making jokes in a language she understood better than they knew. "American woman playing soldier," one of them said, flicking ash into the wind. "Like child with toy gun." "Putin was right," another added. "Their military is joke. They send girls now. She won't last 5 minutes in the water, too fragile, like glass doll." Elena didn't respond, didn't give them the satisfaction. Her jaw stayed locked, her breathing controlled, her eyes tracking details. Guard positions, weapon placement, the gentle roll of the ship that told her the sea state was calm. Wind direction, cloud cover blocking the stars. Information, data, the only currency that mattered when everything else had been stripped away. The crowd parted, and Alexei Volkov stepped through. He was 52, tall, lean in the way career soldiers stay lean even after the war's end. Gray threaded through dark hair cropped military short. He moved with the kind of economy that came from decades of violence. No wasted motion, every step deliberate. His eyes were the color of winter ice, and they studied Elena the way a mechanic studies a broken machine. "Captain Elena Reeves," he said. His English was clean, almost accentless, but there was something underneath it, something cold and ancient. United States Navy, Naval Intelligence, SEAL qualification, Class 347, 29 years old, decorated twice for valor, impressive resume. He crouched beside her, bringing his face level with hers, close enough that she could smell coffee and cigarette smoke. Impressive for a woman, I should clarify. The crew laughed harder. "You know what I find fascinating," Alexei continued, "your psychological profile. Yes, we have a detailed file from your BUD/S training. It says you have a 34% probability of mission success under extreme duress. It says you have emotional vulnerability related to the death of your partner, Lieutenant Maya Torres." Elena's jaw tightened. Barely, just a fraction. But Alexei saw it, and he smiled. There it is, the crack in the armor. He stood, hands clasped behind his back. "In Soviet Union we had saying, send woman to do man's job, expect woman's result. Your presence here proves this wisdom." He walked to the ship's rail, looked out at the black expanse of ocean. 1986, USS Scorpion. American submarine lost with all hands in the Atlantic. 99 sailors drowned. Your Navy told families it was mechanical failure. Accident. Tragedy. He turned back to her. "It was Soviet torpedo. Cold War secret your government buried. Those men died because we were better, stronger, more committed." Elena kept her face blank, but her mind was racing. Scorpion. She knew the story, the official version. If what Alexei said was true, if the Soviets had killed 99 American sailors and gotten away with it, then this wasn't just about stolen weapons. This was about settling old scores. "Today," Alexei said, "one American SEAL drowns. Poetic justice, yes? Your Navy will never find the body, never know Project Typhoon is compromised, Never stop us from delivering the weapons. He gestured to the cinder block. Ocean is cleaner than bullets. No evidence, no investigation. Just another operator lost at sea. Happens all the time. One of the crew members stepped forward, grabbed the block, and started dragging it toward the rail. Elena's knees scraped across the deck grating. She didn't fight. Not yet. Fighting now would only make them more careful, more thorough. She needed them to think she was helpless. Alexei followed, standing over her as the crew positioned her at the edge. Below, the ocean opened up like a throat. Black. Endless. Waiting. "But I am sporting man," Alexei said. "Your file says 11 minutes. Breath-holding record at BUD/S training. Very impressive. For a woman." He paused, and when he spoke again, there was something almost respectful in his tone. "I give you chance. Survive 15 minutes underwater with this block, and I let you live. Free you. Drop you at nearest port." The crew erupted in laughter. "Impossible! She'll beg in 3 minutes. American princess can't handle real water." Alexei raised his hand for silence. "We shall see if American women are as tough as your propaganda claims. If you survive 15 minutes, you win. If not," he shrugged, "Ocean takes what Ocean wants." Elena lifted her head. Blood from her split eyebrow ran down her cheek. Her voice came out rough, damaged but clear. 18. The laughter stopped. Alexei's eyebrows rose. "What? 18 minutes. That's how long I'll last." For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was wind and waves and the distant thrum of the ship's engines. Then Alexei smiled, not amused, something else. Intrigued, maybe, or challenged. Bold words for someone about to drown. Elena met his eyes, held them. "We'll see." Alexei studied her for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. Then he nodded to Ivan, his silent enforcer who stood nearby like a shadow made flesh. "Throw her in." Ivan grabbed the cinder block, lifted it like it weighed nothing, and heaved it over the rail. The chain went taut. Elena's body jerked forward. Her boots left the deck. And then she was falling. Wind tearing at her clothes. Ocean rushing up to meet her. Stars wheeling overhead. She hit the water, and the world exploded into cold and darkness. The block dragged her down. Fast. Faster than her body was ready for. 10 feet. 20. 30. The surface light faded like someone dimming a switch, replaced by blackness so complete it felt like being erased. Pressure built in her ears, her skull, her chest. But Elena wasn't panicking. She was counting. 1, 2, 3. Above her, on the deck of the MV Red October, Alexei checked his watch. The crew was already turning away, already lighting fresh cigarettes, already making jokes about American women and their fragile constitutions. None of them looked back at the water. They didn't know what they'd thrown away. And that was their first mistake. 96 hours earlier, the world had been different. San Diego Naval Base, early morning, the kind of light that makes everything look sharp and clean, like the whole city got scrubbed overnight. The Pacific stretched out beyond the harbor, impossibly blue, dotted with white sailboats and gray warships in equal measure. Captain Elena Reeves sat in a windowless briefing room with her hands folded on the table, listening to a man explain a mission she already knew she'd take. Admiral Richard Hayes stood at the front of the room, 63 years old, gray hair cut high and tight, uniform pressed to knife edges. He'd spent 40 years in the Navy, including 3 tours commanding carrier groups. He didn't waste words. The screen behind him showed a photograph of a cargo ship. Rust-streaked hull, Panamanian flag, the kind of vessel that moved through international waters like a ghost, noticed by everyone, remembered by no one. MV Red October, Admiral Hayes said. Yes, the name is deliberate. Alexei Volkov has a sense of humor. Former KGB, Cold War era, survived the transition by becoming what Moscow politely calls an independent logistics contractor, what we call an arms dealer. He clicked to the next slide. Wooden crates stacked in a shipping container, stenciled labels half scraped away. Elena could still read the markings underneath. U.S. Navy, Mark 48, Project Typhoon. Her spine went rigid. Stolen 6 weeks ago from a decommissioned facility outside Norfolk, the Admiral continued. Mark 48 advanced capability torpedoes, but not the standard model. These are Typhoon variants. AI-guided targeting systems, extended range, deep dive capability, classified program, black budget, Cold War legacy. He paused, letting that sink in. Project Typhoon was our answer to Soviet submarine superiority in the 1980s. We thought the program stayed secret. We were wrong. Alexei Volkov has the weapons, and more critically, he has the specifications. Technical schematics, guidance algorithms, everything needed to replicate the technology. Another click. A map appeared showing a route from Charleston, South Carolina, across the Atlantic to Murmansk, Russia. Red October departed Charleston 48 hours ago. Current position is here. A red dot blinked in the mid-Atlantic. ETA to Russian territorial waters is 96 hours. Once it docks in Murmansk, the weapons disappear into the Russian military-industrial complex. And we're looking at a strategic setback that takes us back 30 years. Elena spoke for the first time. You want me to stop it? Admiral Hayes looked at her. We want visual confirmation and hard evidence that ties the cargo to the theft, something a judge can't ignore. After that, we intercept. Why not intercept now? Legal is dragging their feet. International waters, Panamanian flag, probable cause issues. By the time we get authorization through proper channels, the cargo is offloaded and scattered. He leaned forward. We need proof. Someone inside who can plant a tracker, document the weapons, and extract before the ship reaches port. And if I can't extract, then you stay aboard. Survive until we can intercept. 48 hours, maybe less. The room went quiet. Elena studied the screen, the ship, the route, the timeline. It wasn't a good plan. It was a desperate one. The kind of plan that only worked if everything went right. And in her experience, nothing ever went right. But she'd seen those torpedoes before. Different variants, different designations, but the same family of weapons. 2 years ago, Fort Story Training Facility. Lieutenant Maya Torres, brilliant tactical mind, one of the best combat divers Elena had ever worked with. Maya had been testing a Typhoon prototype when something went catastrophically wrong. Guidance system malfunction, they'd said. Tragic accident. The torpedo went off course, detonated against a training vessel. Maya was killed instantly. Elena had pulled what was left of her friend out of the water, had tried CPR for 11 minutes while other operators called it in, had attended the funeral at Arlington and listened to officers talk about acceptable losses and the price of innovation. And now someone was selling those same weapons to Russia. I'll need full operational autonomy, Elena said. Her voice was calm, flat. Echo 6 clearance. If things go sideways, I'm not waiting for permission to act. Admiral Hayes nodded slowly. Granted. And I want Commander Hawthorne read in. A younger officer at the corner table frowned. Commander Hawthorne is retired, ma'am. He hasn't been active duty in... I don't care. He trained me. If I'm going dark, he's the only one I trust on the other end of the line. The Admiral glanced at the younger officer, then back to Elena. Done. She stood. Then I'm in. She was halfway to the door when Admiral Hayes spoke again. Captain Reeves. She stopped, didn't turn around. This goes bad, we can't pull you out. Not in international waters with a hostile crew. You understand that? She looked over her shoulder, met his eyes. I've been pulled out of worse, sir. Then she walked out, and the door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like a countdown starting. 30 minutes later, she was standing in a storage facility 2 miles off base, staring at a table covered in gear. Wetsuit, ceramic blade, magnetic beacon the size of a deck of cards, CO2 flotation sleeve, emergency signal mirror, everything stripped down to essentials, everything designed to be invisible until it mattered. And standing across from her, holding a cup of coffee like it was the only thing keeping him upright, was Commander James Hawthorne. 67 years old, gray beard cropped close, shoulders still broad despite the years, though age had carved lines into his face that made him look like weathered stone. Hands scarred from 1,000 training drills and a few real fights that never made it into official reports. He'd been her instructor at BUD/S, her mentor during her first SEAL deployment, the only person in the Navy who'd ever told her the truth when she needed to hear it. He set the coffee down and picked up the ceramic blade, turning it over in his palm. "You really think they'll throw you overboard?" "If they catch me? Yeah. It's cleaner than a bullet. No evidence, no body." James grunted, slid the blade across the table toward her. "Then you better make sure you're ready for it." She picked it up, tested the weight, the grip. "I've done the drills. Pool training, 60 feet, zip-tied, weighted block. I know the protocols." "Protocols don't mean shit when you're bleeding and freezing and the ocean's trying to kill you." She met his eyes. "You taught me those protocols. I taught you how to survive a controlled environment. This isn't controlled. This is you alone in open water with no backup, no comms, and no second chances." He leaned forward, voice dropping. "If they throw you in, you're going to want to panic. Your body's going to scream at you to inhale. You're going to see darkness and think it's over. And you don't listen. You count. You breathe when you surface, not before. You find the blade. You cut the ties. You kick. You do it in that order no matter what your brain tells you." She nodded slowly. James exhaled, rubbed his jaw. The scar that ran from his left eyebrow to his hairline caught the light. She'd never asked how he got it. Didn't need to. Men like James collected scars the way other people collected stories. "You really want to do this?" he asked. "They're using our weapons. Typhoon class. Same torpedoes we lost at Fort Story." "I know." His voice sharpened. "I know you know. I was there when you pulled Maya out of the water. I held you while you tried to restart a heart that was already gone. I watched you break." The room went quiet. Elena stared at the table, at the gear laid out like surgical instruments. "She was 28, Elena said. "Best tactical mind I've ever worked with. And someone sold those weapons to the people who killed her. Someone made money off her death." She looked up. "So yeah, I want to do this. I need to." James studied her for a long moment. Then he picked up the wetsuit, found the seam behind the knee, and made a small incision with a pocket knife. He slid the ceramic blade inside, then handed her a needle and thread. "Sew it tight. You don't want it slipping when you need it." She took the needle and started stitching, slow and precise. The thread was military grade, waterproof, designed to hold under pressure. James watched for a moment, then spoke again. "Vietnam, 1968, Mekong Delta." His voice had gone distant, remembering. "My team was running recon near the Cambodian border. VC ambushed us, killed 3 men in the first 30 seconds. Rest of us scattered into the river. They threw me in with my hands tied, figured I'd drown, not worth wasting bullets." Elena kept stitching, but she was listening. "Spent 4 hours in that water. No gear, no flotation. Just me and the current and rice paddies that smelled like death. VC thought I went under in the first 10 minutes. But I didn't. You know why?" "How?" "I counted strokes. Didn't think about surviving. Didn't think about rescue. Just thought about the next stroke. Then the next one. Then the next one." He paused. "You do that long enough, you look up and you're still alive." Elena tied off the stitch, tested the seam. The blade was invisible unless you knew where to look. "How'd you control your breathing?" she asked. James smiled, grim. "Old technique. French Indochina soldiers used it before our time. You slow your heart rate, meditation almost. Get it down from 60 beats per minute to 40. Your body uses less oxygen. You can hold your breath twice as long. They teach that at BUD/S now. We call it hypoxic conditioning. We called it not dying. He picked up the CO2 flotation cartridge, checked the seal. But there's another part they don't teach, mental part. When you're underwater and your lungs are burning and every cell in your body is screaming at you to breathe, you got to find something to hold on to. Not physically, mentally. A reason, a purpose, something bigger than the pain. Like what? Like finishing what you started. Like making sure the people who killed your friends don't get away with it. He set the cartridge down. Maya's last words to you, you remember them? Elena's throat tightened. Finish what you start, Storm. Always. Then that's what you hold on to. When you're 60 feet down and tied to a block and the ocean's trying to take you, you remember her voice. You remember what she asked you to do. And you don't quit. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. James pulled a waterproof watch from his pocket, set it on the table. Timex Ironman. Old school. No GPS, no Bluetooth, no electronics that can be traced. Just a countdown timer and a stopwatch. You hit the water, you start the clock. Helps you track time, keeps you oriented. Why does time matter if I'm drowning? Because you're not going to drown. You're going to escape. And when you do, you're going to want to know how long it took. He met her eyes. Records matter. Not for glory, for proof. When they say women can't do what men do, you point to the clock and tell them to read the fucking numbers. Elena picked up the watch, strapped it to her wrist. What's the current record? Underwater survival, combat conditions, no equipment? 12 minutes. Set by a SEAL in the Philippines, 2003. Insurgents tried to drown him. He escaped, killed 3 of them on the way out. James's expression was stone. You beat 12 minutes. You're in the history books. You prove every doubter wrong. What if I can't? Then you die trying, and at least you went down swinging. He picked up his coffee, took a long drink. But you won't, because I trained you, and I don't train quitters. They worked in silence for another 20 minutes. James showed her how to activate the magnetic beacon with a specific squeeze pattern, how to angle the signal mirror to catch sunlight at maximum range, how to deploy the CO2 cartridge with one hand while underwater. Finally, when the gear was packed and ready, James walked her to the door. Elena, she turned. Ocean doesn't care about training, doesn't care how tough you are or how many missions you've run. It just takes. So when you're out there, you remember, panic drowns more SEALs than bullets. You stay calm, you stay smart, you come home. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then she picked up the gear bag and walked toward the door. Storm, she stopped. Make them regret it. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. The look in her eyes said everything. 24 hours later, she was standing on a loading dock in Charleston, South Carolina, wearing coveralls and a hard hat, blending into a crew of 30 contract workers hauling crates onto the MV Red October. The ship was uglier up close, rust bleeding through old paint, deck plating warped from years of saltwater abuse. But the cranes were running smooth, and the cargo kept moving. Crate after crate, most of it legitimate, agricultural equipment, medical supplies, exactly what the manifest said. But Elena knew better. She'd spent the morning watching the loading pattern, the way certain crates were handled differently, the way 2 men in civilian clothes stood apart from the crew, watching every move with attention that didn't come from union wages. One of them was Alexei Volkov. She didn't know his name yet, but she knew the type. Former military, Eastern European, probably Russian or Ukrainian. The way he moved, the way he scanned the dock, the way his hand never strayed far from his jacket. He wasn't here to supervise cargo. He was here to protect something. The other man was bigger, broader, silent. He stood at Alexei's shoulder like a shadow, and when he moved, workers got out of his way fast. Ivan, she'd learn later. Alexei's enforcer. A Russian dock supervisor watched the crew work, and when Elena hauled an 80-pound crate past him, he sneered. "Woman? Loading cargo? Americans are desperate." Elena said nothing, just kept moving, but she felt the eyes on her, the judgment, the mockery. She waited until the shift change. Chaos on the dock as workers clocked out and new ones clocked in. She slipped past the checkpoint with a group heading below deck, then peeled off down a side corridor while voices echoed behind her. The lower hold was darker, narrower, pipes dripping condensation, the smell of diesel fuel thick enough to taste. She moved quietly, boots barely whispering against steel grating, until she found what she was looking for. A shipping container, reinforced locks, no markings except a serial number spray-painted on the side in Cyrillic. She knelt, pulled a small pry bar from her belt, and worked the lock. It gave with a soft click that sounded like thunder in the enclosed space. Inside, wooden crates stacked floor to ceiling. She pulled one forward, found the seam, cracked it open. Mark 48 Advanced Capability Torpedoes. Project Typhoon. U.S. Navy stencil, half scraped off, but still visible if you knew where to look. Her jaw clenched. She pulled out her phone, snapped 3 photos from different angles, then closed the crate and backed out of the container. The magnetic beacon was no bigger than a deck of cards, disguised as a rusted hull plate. She peeled off the adhesive backing, positioned it on the interior hull plating, port side midline, and pressed hard. The device activated with a faint click. Green LED blinked once, then went dark. Transmission live. She had maybe 30 seconds before someone noticed she was missing from the deck crew. Lost? She froze. Alexei Volkov stood in the corridor behind her, hands in his pockets, expression calm. But his eyes weren't calm. They were sharp, calculating. "Wrong turn," Elena said, kept her voice steady, bored even. "Looking for the head. Bathrooms are 2 decks up." He didn't move, just stood there, studying her too long, too carefully. "You're new," he said. "Started today. What's your name?" "Sarah Collins." The cover identity slid out smooth. She'd rehearsed it 100 times. Sarah Collins. He repeated it like he was testing the weight of the lie. "Where are you from, Sarah?" "Jacksonville." "Needed the work. Dock jobs pay better than most." "Indeed they do." He stepped aside, gestured down the corridor. "Bathrooms that way. Try not to get lost again. This is a large ship. Easy to disappear." She nodded, walked past him, feeling his eyes on her back the whole way. She didn't look back, didn't run, just kept walking until she reached the stairs and climbed back up to the main deck. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. The beacon was planted, the photos were secured. All she had to do was get off the ship before it left port. Simple. Except 12 hours later, when the Red October was 30 miles offshore and the coastline was a memory, Alexei Volkov walked into the crew quarters and dropped her military ID onto the table in front of her. "Sarah Collins," he said softly, "except that's not your real name, is it, Captain Reeves?" And that's when Elena knew the plan had just gone sideways. They didn't waste time. 2 men grabbed her before she could react, slammed her face first into the bulkhead, zip-tied her wrists behind her back. She didn't fight. Not yet. Fighting now would only make them more careful, more thorough. She needed them to think she was helpless. Alexei stood in the doorway watching as they hauled her upright. Blood dripped from her nose where it had hit the wall, but she didn't wipe it away, just stared at him. "Who are you?" he asked. She said nothing. He nodded to one of the men. A fist drove into her stomach. Air exploded from her lungs. She doubled over, gasping, but still didn't speak. Alexei crouched down, bringing his face level with hers. "You planted something on my ship, a tracker. Where is it?" She met his eyes, said nothing. Another punch, this one to the ribs. She heard something crack, felt fire spread across her side, but she kept her mouth shut. Alexei stood, brushed off his pants. Take her to the container. We'll see how long she lasts. They dragged her below deck, past crew quarters, past the engine room, all the way to the cargo hold, where the stolen weapons sat in their crates. They threw her inside a storage container, chained her wrist to a support beam, and left her there in the dark. The door slammed shut. Lock clicked. Elena leaned back against the wall, breathing through the pain, and started counting. Guard rotations. 8-hour shifts, 3 men per rotation. 2 posted outside the container, 1 roaming the hold. She had 48 hours before they either got what they wanted or decided she was more trouble than she was worth. She was betting on the latter, and when that happened, she needed to be ready. They came for her every 6 hours. Sometimes it was waterboarding, a wooden plank, a wet cloth over her face. Buckets of salt water poured until her body convulsed and her mind screamed that she was drowning, even though she knew she wasn't. Sometimes it was stress positions, arms chained above her head, toes barely touching the deck, shoulders burning like someone had lit her tendons on fire. Sometimes they just beat her and asked questions she wouldn't answer. Who sent you? Who else knows? What agency? What backup? Elena gave them nothing. Not her rank, not her clearance, not even a curse word. SEAL training had taught her that pain was just noise. Loud, overwhelming noise, but still just noise. And noise could be filtered, compartmentalized, shoved into a box in the back of her mind while the rest of her stayed sharp. So she counted. Guard rotations, footsteps, the rhythm of the engines. She memorized the layout of the ship, the distance from the container to the stairs, the blind corners where guards couldn't see, the location of the weapons cache, the radio room, the engine controls. She cataloged weaknesses, the backup generator that didn't exist, the emergency ladder to the helipad, the portside ballast vent she'd noticed during infiltration. And when Alexei came to see her on the second day, she was ready. He walked into the container with his hands behind his back, looking at her the way someone might look at a stray dog. Curious, mildly annoyed. "You're tougher than I expected," he said. She didn't respond. "Most people break by now. Beg, bargain, but not you." He tilted his head. "Why?" Still nothing. Alexei sighed, pulled a chair over, and sat down. "I'm going to tell you something, Captain Reeves. Yes, I know your name. I know your rank. I know your naval intelligence. I even know about your SEAL background, BUD/S Class 347. Graduated 3rd in your class, 11-minute breath hold record." He smiled. "You Americans think your databases are secure. They're not." Elena's expression didn't change, but inside her mind was racing. If he knew who she was, then he knew she wasn't just some analyst. He knew she was trained, dangerous, which meant he wasn't going to risk keeping her alive much longer. But then Alexei did something unexpected. He leaned back in his chair and his expression changed, softened almost. "I had a daughter once," he said quietly. "Anya, 12 years old. Beslan School, 2004. You remember Beslan?" Elena said nothing, but she remembered. The siege, Chechen separatists, over 300 dead, most of them children. Russian special forces pumped gas into the building, then fired incendiary rounds. Official story says terrorists caused the explosion. But I was there. I was Alpha Group, Spetsnaz. I saw what happened. His voice went cold. They killed those children, my Anya. And for what? To look strong, to send message. He stood, walked to the container door. After that, I stopped believing in flags and governments and causes. I believe in results, in survival, in funding the orphanages that take in children like Anya, who didn't burn. 400 children alive because of what I do, because I sell your weapons to the highest bidder and use the money to keep them fed, clothed, educated. He turned back to her. So when you judge me, Captain, remember this. We are both soldiers betrayed by our governments. The difference is, I found a purpose beyond the uniform. You're still trapped inside yours. Elena's voice came out raspy, damaged from the waterboarding. Maya Torres, 28 years old, best friend I ever had, died testing one of your stolen torpedoes because someone sabotaged the guidance system. Someone sold you the specs, and you used them to kill her. Alexi's expression didn't change. Unfortunate, but necessary. Your Typhoon program was too dangerous to let continue. One test death to prevent a new arms race? A fair trade. You don't get to justify murder with dead children, Alexei. I lost people too. The difference is I don't drown innocents to feel better about it. His jaw tightened. These weapons, he said, gesturing vaguely toward the crates outside, Typhoon-class torpedoes, worth enough to fund 3 years of operations, enough to arm a small fleet, enough to make certain people very, very angry at the United States Navy. He paused. And you were going to ruin that. One woman with a tracker and a camera. He nodded to someone outside. Ivan stepped in, 6'4", 240 pounds, dead eyes. The kind of man who didn't ask questions because he didn't care about answers. We're done with her, Alexei said. Ocean's cleaner than a bullet. No evidence, no body. Ivan grunted, walked over to Elena, grabbed her by the arm, and hauled her upright. Pain screamed through her ribs, but she didn't make a sound. Alexei paused at the door. For what it's worth, Captain, you lasted longer than most. That counts for something. Then he walked out, and Ivan dragged her toward the deck. Night had fallen. The ocean was black and endless, stars scattered above like broken glass. Elena's vision swam, ribs throbbing with every breath. But her mind was clear. They chained her ankles to the cinder block. Ivan didn't say a word, just locked the shackles tight, tested the weight, stepped back. The rushing crew gathered, 6 of them, smoking, joking, making bets on how long she'd last. 3 minutes, maybe 4. No, less. Women can't hold breath like men. Biology. She'll panic. They always panic. Alexei appeared beside her. He didn't speak at first, just looked down at her kneeling form, hands zip-tied behind her back, ankles chained to concrete and rust. Your file says 11 minutes, he said finally. Breath-holding record at BUD/S training. Very impressive. For a woman, he paused, and when he spoke again, there was something almost respectful in his tone. I give you chance. Survive 15 minutes underwater with this block, and I let you live, free you, drop you at nearest port. The crew erupted in laughter. Impossible! She'll beg in 3 minutes. American princess can't handle real water. Alexei raised his hand for silence. We shall see if American women are as tough as your propaganda claims. If you survive 15 minutes, you win. If not, he shrugged. Ocean takes what Ocean wants. Elena lifted her head. Blood from her split eyebrow ran down her cheek. Her voice came out rough, damaged, but clear. 18. The laughter stopped. Alexei's eyebrows rose. What? 18 minutes. That's how long I'll last. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was wind and waves and the distant thrum of the ship's engines. Then Alexei smiled, not amused, something else. Intrigued, maybe, or challenged. Bold words for someone about to drown. Elena met his eyes, held them. We'll see. Alexei studied her for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. Then he nodded to Ivan. Throw her in. Ivan grabbed the cinder block, lifted it like it weighed nothing, and heaved it over the rail. The chain went taut. Elena's body jerked forward. Her boots left the deck, and then she was falling. Wind tearing at her clothes, ocean rushing up to meet her, stars wheeling overhead. She hit the water, and the world exploded into cold and darkness. The block dragged her down, fast, faster than her body was ready for. 10 feet, 20, 30. The surface light faded like someone dimming a switch, replaced by blackness so complete it felt like being erased. Pressure built in her ears. her skull, her chest. But Elena wasn't panicking. She was counting. 1, 2, 3. James's voice in her head, clear as if he were beside her. Count. Don't feel. Count. 4, 5, 6. Her hands moved behind her back, fingers searching for the seam in her boot heel. Numb already from the cold and the zip ties cutting off circulation, but moving, searching. 7, 8, 9. She found it, the small incision James had made, the ceramic blade hidden inside. Her fingers closed around it, pulled it free. 10, 11, 12. The blade was sharp, but underwater with hands bound and wrists twisted at an unnatural angle. Sharp didn't mean easy. It meant possible. And possible was all she needed. She angled the blade against the zip tie, felt the serrated edge catch, started sawing. 13, 14, 15. Above her, on the deck of the Red October, Alexei checked his watch. The crew was already turning away, already lighting fresh cigarettes, already making jokes about American women and their fragile constitutions. None of them looked back at the water. They didn't know what they'd thrown away. 16, 17, 18. 50 feet down, the zip tie snapped. Elena's hands came free. She immediately grabbed for her ankles, fingers finding the shackle locks. But these weren't plastic. These were steel. Old iron padlocks that Alexei's crew had probably been using for decades. No key, no weakness, just rust and weight, an ocean pulling her deeper. 60 feet, her lungs were starting to burn now. Not screaming yet, but aware, making their presence known, reminding her that she was 30 seconds from critical, maybe 45 if she stayed calm. She kicked once, testing the block. It barely shifted. Too heavy. Too much momentum. She couldn't swim up with it, and she couldn't break the chains. But she could break herself free from them. Elena bent her knees, drawing her legs up as tight as the shackles allowed. Then she drove both feet down onto the block with everything she had. The chains went taut. Her ankles screamed, but the shackles, rusted and old, shifted slightly against her skin. She kicked again, harder. The metal bit deeper, tearing skin, drawing blood that dissolved into black water. But the shackles moved another quarter inch. Third kick. The left shackle slipped over her heel. She yanked her foot free, skin tearing, blood blooming warm against the cold, and suddenly she had one leg loose. The block tilted, spinning slightly, pulling her sideways. She used the momentum, twisted her right ankle, ignored the pain, and pulled. The shackle caught on her ankle bone. Held. She pulled harder, feeling tissue compress, feeling metal scrape bone. And then it gave. Her foot came free in a hot rush of pain that barely registered because she was already kicking upward. The block disappeared into the dark below her, gone, irrelevant. Elena kicked toward the surface. 1 minute, 30 seconds since she'd hit the water. Her lungs were past burning now. They were clenching, spasming, her body screaming at her to inhale. Open your mouth. Breathe. Doesn't matter that it's water. Just breathe. She didn't. James's voice again. Count. Don't guess. Count. She counted kicks. 1, 2, 3. Each one pushing her higher. Each one burning through oxygen she didn't have. 15 feet from the surface, her vision started to tunnel. Black creeping in from the edges. Her body making executive decisions, shutting down non-essential systems to keep her brain alive just a few seconds longer. 10 feet. She could see the faint shimmer of moonlight on water above her. So close. 5 feet. Her mouth opened involuntarily, body overriding mind. She clamped it shut, but the reflex was there, ready to betray her. 3 feet. Her hand found the CO2 cartridge clipped to her belt. Small cylinder, no bigger than a lipstick tube. She yanked the release pin, the flotation sleeve inflated with a hiss, wrapping around her ribs, jerking her upward like an invisible hand pulling her toward air. She broke the surface gasping, mouth wide, lungs exploding inward, dragging oxygen in with a sound that was half sob, half scream. For 10 seconds she did nothing but breathe. In, out, in, out. The most important thing in the world reduced to its simplest function. Then her training kicked back in. Assessment, threat check, situational awareness. The ocean stretched in every direction. Black water meeting black sky. The only distinction, a faint line where stars ended and reflection began. No ship, no lights, no sound except waves and her own ragged breathing. The red October was gone. Alexei and his crew already miles away, thinking she was dead. Good. Let them think that. Elena pressed the button on her watch. 18 minutes, 4 seconds. She'd done it. Beaten Alexei's challenge, set a new record. But she wasn't done yet. She rotated slowly in the water, minimizing movement to conserve heat and energy. The flotation sleeve kept her mostly upright, head above water, but it wasn't a life vest. It was a survival tool. Enough buoyancy to keep her from sinking, not enough to keep her comfortable. Her ankles throbbed, blood still seeping from where the shackles had torn skin. Not arterial, not immediately dangerous, but open ocean. Blood meant attention, and attention in open ocean meant things with teeth. She pulled the cord from her wetsuit's inner seam, the same cord James had shown her how to braid years ago. Waterproof, tensile strength rated for climbing. She wrapped it tight around her right ankle, then her left, creating compression tourniquets that slowed the bleeding to a trickle. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, from cold. The Atlantic in November wasn't freezing, but it wasn't warm either. 62 degrees, maybe 64. Cold enough to kill in 4 hours if she didn't move. Cold enough to shut down her core temperature degree by degree until her body simply stopped trying. She looked up, found Orion. The belt pointed southwest, just like James had taught her. And there, barely visible in the horizon, a vertical orange shimmer. Oil rig flare. 8 nautical miles, maybe 9, burning off excess gas from a deepwater platform, visible for miles in every direction. It might as well have been a lighthouse. Elena adjusted the flotation sleeve, positioning it to support her weight with minimal effort, then began to paddle. Slow, efficient strokes. Arms barely breaking the surface, legs kicking in a shallow flutter that pushed her forward without advertising her presence. She whispered the mantra James had drilled into her during cold water training at Fort Story. Pain is noise. Noise is useful. Use it to think. The pain in her ankles kept her sharp. The cold kept her moving. The exhaustion kept her focused on the next stroke instead of the impossible distance ahead. 3 more strokes, then breathe. 3 more strokes, then breathe. She fell into the rhythm. Let it carry her forward. Let it become the only thing that mattered. Behind her, blood dispersed in a faint trail, spreading, diluting, but not disappearing. And 60 feet below, something noticed. The first 30 minutes were manageable. Each stroke pushed Elena farther from where she'd been thrown. The flare stayed constant on the horizon, a fixed point to navigate toward. Her body settled into the work, muscles finding the rhythm, breath synchronizing with movement. But the temperature was dropping. Not the water, her core temperature, sliding down degree by degree as her body burned through energy trying to stay warm. Her fingers started to curl without her telling them to. Her jaw clenched involuntarily. Every few minutes she checked the flare. Still there, still distant. Maybe half a mile closer. Maybe. The math was simple and brutal. 8 miles at her current pace meant 6 hours of swimming. Maybe 7. Her body would shut down from hypothermia in 4. 5 if she was lucky. 70% chance she wouldn't make it. She kept paddling anyway. 3 more strokes. Breathe. 3 more strokes. Breathe. She was halfway through her seventh interval when the water changed. Not temperature, not current, something else. A stillness beneath her that didn't match the rhythm of the waves. Like the ocean was holding its breath. Elena stopped paddling, let herself drift, listening, feeling, silence. Then a low tug beneath her foot. Not aggressive, just curious. Testing. She stayed vertical. Didn't thrash, didn't kick. Just floated, making herself tall in the water. Scanned the surface. 20 feet to her left, a dorsal fin broke the surface. Dark gray, scarred, moving in a lazy arc. Oceanic white tip, 20 feet long, maybe more. Blunt nose, wide pectoral fins. The kind of shark that followed ships and trailed wounded animals for hours. Patient, methodical. It circled her once at a distance, then disappeared beneath the surface. Elena's heart rate spiked, but she forced it back down. Panic released chemical signals. Sharks could sense fear the same way they sense blood. She needed to be stone, calm, uninteresting. She remembered the SEAL instructor at Fort Story, grizzled old bastard who'd survived a helicopter crash in the Pacific and spent 16 hours in the water before rescue. He'd stood in front of the class, hands on hips, and delivered the gospel of shark encounters with all the warmth of a drill sergeant. Stay vertical. Make eye contact. You're not prey unless you act like it. And if it comes at you, you hit first. Gills, eyes, snout. You make it hurt enough that it decides you're not worth the effort. The shark came back, closer this time. Close enough that Elena could see the pilot fish swimming alongside it. Close enough to see the scars crisscrossing its hide. It veered right, then curved back, testing her. Elena slowly unstrapped the dive knife from her thigh, the same blade she'd used on the zip ties, still sharp, still ready. Her hands were stiff from cold, grip weak, but she switched to reverse grip and held it low against her leg. The shark disappeared again. Seconds passed, 10, 20, then it shot up, fast, not from the side, from directly below. Elena flared her left arm wide, making herself bigger, and turned just enough to lead the shark past her. It grazed her leg, rough skin scraping wetsuit, tasting the blood from her ankles. It rolled beneath her and looped around. She exhaled slowly, forced her heartbeat down, watched. The shark circled tighter now, committed, no longer curious, evaluating whether she was food. It came again. This time, more direct, more committed. Elena struck first. She pivoted as it lunged, knife forward, and drove the blade straight into the gill slit as the shark passed. The knife sank deep, tore through soft tissue, came free. The shark thrashed. Its flank collided with her hip. The impact shoved her half under. Salt water flooded her mouth. She came up coughing, gasping, chest burning, but she didn't let go of the knife. The shark circled again, slower now, trailing blood from the gill wound. Not fatal, but painful enough to reconsider. Then Elena saw the second fin, and the third. 2 more sharks, smaller, maybe 10 feet each. They'd been hanging back, watching the first one test her. Now they were moving in, pack hunting. Her stomach dropped. 1 shark she could handle. 3 was a different problem. 3 meant coordinated attacks, distraction from one side while another struck from below. The kind of tactical efficiency that made white tips apex predators. The wounded shark peeled off, circling wide. The 2 fresh ones closed in from opposite sides. Elena reached for her belt with her free hand, found the emergency flare clipped beside where the flotation cartridge had been. Small cylinder, waterproof casing, designed for surface signaling, but it would work underwater for about 10 seconds. She pulled the ignition tab, shoved the flare beneath the surface, and released it. Magnesium ignited in a white-hot flash. The flare sank, trailing fire and smoke, spinning as it descended. All 3 sharks turned toward it, instinct overriding strategy. The bright, thrashing object suddenly more interesting than the bleeding woman. They followed it down. Elena didn't wait. She turned toward the oil flare on the horizon and started paddling. Hard, fast, every ounce of energy she had left. Behind her, the emergency flare burned out. The ocean settled, but the sharks didn't come back. She counted to 100, then 200, then stopped counting and just swam. Her body was shaking now, not just from cold, from adrenaline crash, from blood loss, from the realization that she just fought 3 sharks with a knife and a flare and somehow lived. Maya's voice echoed in her head, words from 2 years ago, standing on the deck at Fort Story after a brutal training dive. Finish what you start, Storm. Always. Elena whispered it back to the empty ocean. Always. Then she kept swimming. Dawn broke slowly like the sky didn't want to commit. Pale gold smeared across the horizon in thin slashes, turning the black water gray, then blue, then something almost welcoming. Elena squinted into the light. Her left eye was still swollen, half shut, from where Alexi's men had beaten her. But the right eye tracked movement, scanned the growing visibility, looked for threats and salvation in equal measure. The oil flare was closer now, maybe 3 miles, maybe less. Still impossibly far, but close enough to see the platform beneath it. Steel lattice rising out of the water like a rusted cathedral. Her breath came in ragged pulls, short and shallow. Her chest ached with every inhale, ribs protesting from the beating, from the cold, from hours of exertion her body wasn't designed to sustain. She was beginning to drift west, current pulling her sideways despite her best efforts. She recalibrated, star to port, wind to stern, kept the flare centered, pushed forward. One stroke, pause, float, repeat. Her arms felt like lead. Her legs barely responded to commands. The flotation sleeve was still keeping her above water, but just barely. The puncture from the shark fight had created a slow leak. Not catastrophic, not yet, but in another hour, maybe 2, she'd be swimming without assistance, and she didn't have another hour in her. Then she heard it, faint at first, a low hum beneath the sound of wind and waves. She turned her head, scanning the sky, and saw it. A black dot cutting across the pale morning. Angular wings, twin engines, moving fast and low. MH-60 Seahawk, Navy bird. Elena's heart lurched. She reached for her belt with fingers that could barely close anymore. Swollen, stinging, white at the knuckles from cold and restricted circulation. Her hand found the signal mirror. Retractable cord. Reflective surface no bigger than a playing card. She yanked it free, angled it toward the sun, and caught the light. Flash. Pause. Flash. Flash. 3 seconds. SOS. Repeat. Her hands shook. The angle slipped. She corrected. Flashed again. Flash. Pause. Flash. Flash. The helicopter was too high, too fast. It would pass overhead in seconds and never see her. Just another piece of debris in an ocean full of nothing. She flashed again, desperate now. Ignoring the cramp in her hand, the exhaustion, the voice in her head saying it was already too late. Flash. Pause. Flash. Flash. Inside the Seahawk's cockpit, Lieutenant Commander Aaron Calloway leaned forward, eyes scanning the instruments. The sensor operator beside her tilted his head. "We just passed a glint off the water. 11 o'clock low." Calloway glanced at the coordinates. "Reflection, probably wave scatter." "Too rhythmic," the operator said. He adjusted the thermal scan, zooming in. "And we've got a heat bloom, barely human temperature, drifting southeast." The crew chief leaned between them. "Could be a decoy. They've used mirrors on buoys before. Draw us in. Ambush on approach." "No signal buoy registers on sonar in these waters," the co-pilot said. "And we've got a weird secondary ping. Passive signature. Military grade." Calloway's jaw tightened. She banked the bird hard left, dropping altitude fast. "Not a decoy. Decoys don't bleed." She keyed the radio. Romeo 6 to base. We've got possible survivor in the water. Coordinating rescue approach. Back on the surface, Elena kept flashing. Her vision was starting to swim now, black edges creeping in, her body shutting down non-essential systems. Hypothermia making executive decisions. But she didn't stop. Flash. Pause. Flash. Flash. The helicopter's rotor wash hit her like a wall. Sudden, violent, churning the water into foam. Wind tearing at her face, her hair, the flotation sleeve. She looked up. The MH-60 was circling now. Nose tilted, side door open. A figure in a dry suit leaned out, scanning the water. Elena let her head fall back. Let the water hold her. For the first time since Alexei kicked that block, she stopped kicking, and the ocean held her. Hands grabbed her seconds later, tactical gloves, strong, certain. A voice shouted over the rotor noise. U.S. Navy, you're safe. She opened her eye, tried to speak. Her lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Just air. Then barely a whisper. Tracked vessel. The rescue swimmer froze mid-lift, water streaming off his dry suit. Say again. Elena Reeves, Captain, Naval Intelligence. The words came out like shattered glass. Beacon still active. Freighter. The swimmer's expression changed. Recognition. Shock. He hit his radio. Romeo 6. We've got Captain Elena Reeves. Repeat. Captain Reeves. She's alive. Inside the Seahawk, Aaron Calloway's hands went still on the controls. Reeves. Intelligence officer reported missing 4 days ago. Affirmative, the swimmer said. And she's saying something about a beacon and a freighter. Calloway exchanged a glance with her co-pilot. Get her up. Now. The rescue sling wrapped around Elena's torso, straps cinching tight across her ribs. Cold hands braced her neck as the winch engaged. Then the ocean dropped away. One moment black water, the next air and spray and rotor wash. She rose through it all, boots trailing, blood from her ankles dripping into the void she'd just escaped. The Seahawk's skids caught sunlight as gloved hands reached out and hauled her through the door. Get her down, someone shouted. The cabin was hot, loud, voices overlapping, equipment clanking, doors rattling. Elena hit the stretcher and someone immediately pressed a thermal blanket to her chest. A medic leaned over her, cutting through her wetsuit, peeling it back. Her skin was pale gray, marked with pressure lines from the flotation gear. He tapped her cheek gently. Ma'am, stay with me. What's your name? She turned her head, barely. Her lips moved. Elena Reeves, Captain. Good. Where are you hurt? Everywhere. Her voice was cracked. Ribs, ankles, hypothermia. Another medic appeared with an IV kit. BP's tanking. 82/43. She's freezing from the inside out. Run saline with heat packs, the first medic ordered. He looked back at Elena. Captain, we need to get you to a hospital. You're in bad shape. She grabbed his wrist. Her grip was weak, but insistent. No, turn around. Turn around where? She lifted her other hand, shaking, pointed east through the open door toward the horizon. Freighter, weapons, stolen Navy ordnance, 2 hours max before dock. The cabin went still. The crew chief stepped forward. You have proof? Planted beacon before capture, lower hull port side. She coughed, tasted blood. Tracking signatures should still be live. The sensor operator spun his screen around, fingers flying over the interface. She's right, weak ping. Telemetry signature matches military-grade passive tracker. Drifted about 3 miles northeast, but signal stable. Aaron Calloway's voice cut in through the headset comms. Say again. What beacon? Classified Navy tracker, the operator said. Passive magnetic, not standard issue. She must have planted it before exfil went bad. In the cockpit, Calloway stared at the coordinates on her display. The blinking dot, the trajectory vector. She'd been flying search and rescue for 8 years. She knew when something was bigger than a pickup. "Ma'am," the medic said, turning back to Elena, "you need medical evac. You're septic. Core temp is critical. You won't last another." "They threw me overboard 4 hours ago," Elena interrupted. Her voice was stronger now, fueled by something the medic recognized as pure, stubborn will. "They think I'm dead. If you move now, they won't run. If you wait, they dock in Puntland and offload before anyone can build probable cause." The crew chief keyed his mic. "Pilot, she's got Echo 6 clearance. Operational authority." Calloway hesitated. "She's barely conscious. She planted a tracker on a hostile vessel, survived interrogation, got thrown in the ocean, fought off sharks, and stayed alive long enough for us to find her." The chief's voice was flat, certain. "If she says turn the bird, we turn the bird." Silence on the comms. Then Calloway's voice, quiet but resolved. "Romeo 6 to Seahorse Command. We have Captain Elena Reeves aboard, alive. Critical condition. She's requesting intercept authority on target vessel, Red October. Advise." Static. Then a different voice. "Command authority. Admiral level. Romeo 6. Medical evac is priority. Return to base immediately." Elena tried to sit up. The medic pushed her back down, but she spoke loud enough for the mic to catch it. "I'm invoking Echo 6 field clearance. Authorization Reeves 77 Delta. Operational command transfers to asset in theater when chain is compromised. I'm the asset." She paused for breath. "Turn this bird east and get me to USS Colorado. Now." More silence. Then the Admiral's voice again, colder. "Captain Reeves, you are not in operational condition to." "USS Colorado is 40 miles east-southeast," Elena said. "SEAL intercept team standing by. Freighter docks in 90 minutes. After that, evidence scatters and we lose the entire network." She coughed again. "You want to explain to Congress how we let stolen Typhoon torpedoes disappear because you prioritized one officer's comfort over national security?" The line went silent for 5 full seconds. Then the Admiral's voice came back, clipped. "Colorado, this is Seahorse Actual. Prepare for priority asset transfer. Romeo 6, you are cleared for intercept rendezvous." Erin Calloway didn't wait for confirmation. She banked the Seahawk hard east, nose dropping, engines roaring as the bird sliced across open water. Inside, the medic pressed a heat pack against Elena's collarbone and muttered under his breath, "You just overrode an admiral." Elena closed her eyes. Let the warmth sink in. "He'll thank me later." The crew chief crouched beside her, handed her a pen. "Before you pass out, write the rendezvous coordinates, somewhere we can see them." She took the pen. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold it, but she pressed it against the back of her other hand and scrawled numbers. Latitude, longitude, intercept vector. When she finished, she let the pen drop and looked at the chief. "Tell Colorado I'm coming aboard. Tell them to prep SDVs, full tactical loadout." Her voice was fading now, exhaustion finally catching up. "And tell Commander Hawthorne I kept my promise." The chief nodded, keyed his radio. Outside, the ocean blurred past beneath them. The sun climbed higher, and somewhere ahead, invisible beyond the horizon, a black steel submarine was already beginning its ascent. Elena let her head fall back against the stretcher. Let the medics work. Let the helicopter carry her forward. She'd survived the ocean. Now she was going to make Alexei Volkov regret ever hearing her name. The USS Colorado surfaced like something prehistoric. Black steel breaking through blue water, shedding ocean in curtains that caught the light and fell away. Silent running breached, ballast tanks venting, the sail cutting upward until the whole boat sat low and dark against the horizon. From the air, it looked like a knife left in still water. Erin Calloway circled once, adjusting approach angle, while the crew chief opened the side door and rigged the transfer line. Wind roared into the cabin. Elena felt it on her face, cold and sharp, cutting through the heat packs and thermal blankets. Below, figures appeared on the submarine's deck. Black dry suits, tactical gear, moving with the kind of efficiency that came from doing this 1,000 times. The Seahawk descended. Rotor wash hammered the surface, turning calm water into chaos. The stretcher line lowered and Elena went with it, strapped tight, spinning slightly as the wind caught her. She didn't look down, just focused on breathing, on staying conscious, on not passing out before she could finish what she'd started. Her boots touched steel. Hands grabbed the stretcher, steadied it, carried her toward the hatch. She caught a glimpse of faces, hard, professional. One of them locked eyes with her for half a second. Lieutenant Commander Jackson Mercer, SEAL team leader, early 40s, clean-shaven head, scar running through his left eyebrow. The kind of man who looked at problems and saw solutions written in violence and precision. "Captain Reeves," he said, not a question, a confirmation. She nodded. "You look like hell. You should see the other guys." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Then he gestured to his team. "Get her below. Medic standing by." They carried her through the hatch, down a ladder that clanged under boots, into the guts of the submarine. The air changed immediately, warmer, recycled. The smell of electronics and diesel, and something metallic. They moved her into what looked like a combination briefing room and infirmary. Later on a table, a Navy corpsman appeared, older, weathered, and immediately started checking vitals while another tech set up IV lines. Jackson stood at the edge of the table, arms crossed, watching her with the expression of someone trying to decide if she was an asset or a liability. "You're septic," the corpsman said flatly. "BP's still in the basement. Core temp is climbing, but barely. You need a hospital." "I need an SDV and a team," Elena said. Her voice was stronger now, the warmth and IV fluids bringing her back from the edge. "How long until intercept window?" Jackson didn't answer immediately. He pulled out a tablet, brought up a tactical display, and turned it toward her. The screen showed a map overlay, a blinking red dot moving northwest along a shipping lane. "Your beacon's still transmitting. Red October confirmed. Currently 73 nautical miles from Puntland Dock. ETA 94 minutes at current speed." Elena studied the screen, forced her vision to focus despite the exhaustion. "Distance from our position? 32 miles. We can intercept in 40 minutes if we push." "Then push." Jackson set the tablet down. "With respect, Captain, you're in no condition to run an operation. You can barely sit up." "I planted that beacon. I survived 72 hours of interrogation. I memorized ship layout, guard rotations, cargo locations, structural weaknesses while they were beating me." She met his eyes. "You don't have that intel. I do. We can get that intel from you right now. You brief us. We execute. And if something's changed, if they've moved cargo or rotated crew or rigged the ship." She pushed herself up on her elbows, ignoring the corpsman's protest. "I know that ship. I know Alexei Volkov. I know how he thinks. You go in blind, you're gambling. I go with you. It's a sure thing." Jackson's jaw tightened. He looked at the corpsman. "Can you stabilize her for 2 hours?" The corpsman hesitated. "Maybe. IV antibiotics, adrenaline shot, compression wraps. But after 2 hours, she crashes hard. And I mean hard. Sepsis doesn't wait." "Then stabilize me," Elena said. 2 hours is all I need." Before Jackson could respond, a voice cut through the room. Deep, gravelly, familiar. "Bull, listen to me." Everyone turned. A speaker on the wall crackled with static, then cleared. The voice came through again. "I trained that woman. I taught her cold water survival, tactical insertion, and how to stay alive when everything's going sideways. If she says she can do it, she can." Elena's chest tightened. "James." "Hey, kid." Commander James Hawthorne's voice carried warmth, despite the electronic distortion. You scared the hell out of me. Told you I'd finish what I started. Yeah, well, you're making me look bad. I said you'd last 12 minutes. You did 18 and came back angrier. A pause. Now make them regret throwing you in my ocean. Jackson looked at the speaker, then at Elena. Hawthorne vouches for you. He trained half the SEAL teams in the Atlantic. Including yours, Elena said. Jackson's expression shifted slightly, respect edging into the skepticism. He exhaled through his nose, then nodded to the corpsman. Stabilize her. Full combat protocol. She's going in. The corpsman muttered something under his breath, but got to work. Fourth, antibiotics. Compression bandages around her ribs and ankles. An injection of epinephrine that hit her system like lightning and brought the world into sharp focus. Elena swung her legs off the table, tested her weight. Pain flared, but it was manageable. Distant, she could work through it. Jackson handed her a tablet. Show me the ship layout. She took it, pulled up a blank schematic, and started drawing from memory. 8 hostiles confirmed, 3 per guard rotation. They work 8-hour shifts, so right now you're looking at the midday crew. Less alert, more predictable. Her fingers moved across the screen, marking locations. Container arrangement blocks upper deck access here and here. Weapons cache is mid-deck hold, starboard side. Alexei's quarters are forward, just below the bridge. Weak points? Engine room. No backup generator. You cut main power, they're blind and deaf for 45 seconds before emergency lighting kicks in. That's your window. Jackson nodded slowly, impressed despite himself. Entry points? Ballast vents, port side, midline. They lead directly into the maintenance corridor adjacent to the engine room. I use them during infiltration. They're unlocked from the inside. You're sure? She looked up at him. I'm sure. He studied her for another moment, then nodded. Gear up. We launch in 20 minutes. Elena stood, steadied herself against the table, then followed Jackson out of the room and into the narrow corridor beyond. They passed crew stations, control panels, men working with quiet intensity. Reached the equipment bay. Jackson pulled open a locker and started laying out gear. Dry suit, rebreather, tactical vest, suppressed HK-416, flashbang grenades, breach charges. He handed her a dry suit. This'll fit, probably. She took it, started pulling it on over the compression wraps. The material was stiff, waterproof, designed for cold water operations. It hurt to move, but she didn't slow down. Jackson watched her suit up, then spoke quietly. You don't have to prove anything, Captain. You already survived the impossible. No one's questioning your courage. This isn't about courage, Elena said, sealing the suit. It's about finishing the job. He handed her the vest. Fair enough. But when we're on that ship, you follow my lead. This is my team, my op. You're here as tactical advisor, not command. She met his eyes. Understood. And if you go down, we're not stopping the mission to carry you out. I wouldn't expect you to. He nodded once, respect solidifying into something close to trust. Then he turned to the rest of his team, filing into the bay. 6 men, all SEALs, all moving with the same quiet professionalism, checking gear, loading magazines, taping down loose straps. Jackson raised his voice just enough to carry. Listen up. We've got 87 minutes until target docks. Intercept window is tight. SDV insertion from the east. Silent approach. Captain Reeves has full ship intel, and she's riding with us. One of the SEALs glanced at Elena, then at Jackson. She good to dive? She just swam 8 miles in open ocean after being thrown overboard, Jackson said. I think she can handle an SDV. The SEAL grinned. Fair point. Elena pulled on the rebreather harness, adjusted the straps, checked the oxygen mix. Everything felt familiar, muscle memory from 100 training dives. She might be half dead, but she knew how to do this. Jackson stepped closer, lowered his voice. One more thing. If Alexei's on that ship when we breach, what's your call? Capture or kill? Elena didn't hesitate. Capture. He's worth more alive. Testimony, intel, network connections. And if he doesn't give us a choice? She checked the magazine on her rifle, slapped it home. Then we make it quick. Jackson smiled, cold, predatory. I think we're going to get along just fine, Captain. 20 minutes later, they were in the water. The SDVs launched from the Colorado's dorsal hatch, like shadows detaching from something larger. 2 vehicles, 3 operators each, battery-silent propulsion, thermal camouflage, invisible to sonar. Elena was crammed in the rear compartment of the lead SDV, pressed between Jackson and another SEAL, chest tight against her knees. The rebreather fed her oxygen in steady rhythm. The viewport showed almost nothing, just dark water and the faint glow of bioluminescence trailing off the hull. Her beacon pulsed on the heads-up display, a steady heartbeat guiding them forward. 30 meters, then 20, then 10. The freighter appeared on thermal before they saw it visually, a massive heat signature above them, engines churning, hull cutting through water. Jackson's voice came through the comms, low, calm. 60 meters to intercept, stack formation, silent approach. Elena's thermal display flickered. Heat signatures clustered near the bridge, but something else caught her eye. A separate bloom, midship, distinct pattern, someone moving methodically through compartments. She keyed her mic. Bull, heat signature, midship section. Movement pattern suggests placement activity. Placement? Explosives. Her stomach dropped. He's rigging scuttling charges right now. Jackson's voice went flat. ETA to intercept? 4 minutes. How long to arm standard charges? Elena's mind raced through every demolitions course she'd ever taken. 6 minutes if he's thorough, 3 if he's rushing. Then we breach in 3. All teams, double-time approach. The SDVs surged forward, propulsion kicking harder. The element of surprise was gone. Now it was a race. The SDVs angled upward, rising toward the underside of the Red October. The hull loomed like a wall of darkness. Rust, barnacles, shadows. Elena's hand found the beacon location. Port side, midline, still transmitting. Jackson tapped her shoulder, pointed. The ballast vent was exactly where she said it would be. A grated opening, partially corroded, leading into the ship's interior. The team detached from the SDVs, 6 frogmen moving through black water with barely a ripple. Elena followed, slower, her body protesting every movement, but she kept pace. They reached the vent. Jackson tested the grate. It moved. Elena had been right. Unlocked. He pulled it open. One by one, the team slipped inside. Elena went last, squeezed through the narrow duct, elbows scraping rusted metal, knees dragging over slime. They emerged into the maintenance corridor. Heat, noise, the thrum of engines just beyond the bulkhead. Jackson signaled. 2-man teams, silent sweep. And just like that, they were inside. Past steel, past noise, past excuses. The hunted had become the hunters. And Alexei Volkov had no idea what was coming for him. The corridor smelled like rust and diesel and decades of salt corrosion. Pipes dripped condensation overhead, each drop echoing in the narrow space like a countdown timer. Jackson moved first, weapon up, scanning angles with the kind of precision that came from muscle memory written in combat zones most people only read about. Elena followed 3 steps behind, her HK-416 tight against her shoulder, despite the fire burning through her ribs. The compression wraps helped, but every breath was a negotiation with pain. The epinephrine kept her sharp, kept her moving, but she could feel it starting to fade at the edges. 2 hours, the corpsman had said. She'd already burned through 25 minutes. The team split at the first junction. 2 SEALs peeled right toward the cargo hold. 2 more went left toward the upper deck access. Jackson and Elena continued straight, moving toward the engine room with a 6th operator trailing as rear security. They reached the bulkhead door. Jackson tested it, unlocked. He cracked it open, checked the angle, then slipped through. The engine room opened up before them. Massive turbines, belts spinning, the roar of machinery that never stopped, never slept, just churned fuel into motion and motion into distance. Two guards stood near the control panel. Cigarettes, bored expressions. One of them laughed at something the other said. Jackson didn't give them time to react. Two suppressed bursts. Both guards dropped before the cigarettes hit the floor. The SEAL behind Elena moved forward, dragging the bodies behind a turbine housing. Jackson was already at the control panel, fingers moving over switches and breakers. 30 seconds until power cut, he said into comms. All teams confirm position. The radio crackled. Cargo team in position. Cache confirmed. Typhoon torpedoes, encryption devices, navigation software. Everything, she said. Upper deck team in position. 3 hostiles visual. Neutralize on your mark. Jackson looked at Elena. Anything changes in the next 30 seconds, you tell me. She shook her head. It's exactly how I remember it. He nodded, then keyed his mic. All teams, execute on power failure. 45-second window. Make it count. His hand moved to the main breaker, then stopped. The SEAL near the door raised his fist. Contact. Everyone froze. Footsteps echoed from the corridor beyond. Heavy boots, multiple contacts. Voices in Russian, getting closer. Elena's pulse spiked. They'd moved the rotation up, probably because of missing guards topside. Smart, adaptive, exactly what she would have done. Jackson's eyes met hers. No accusation, just calculation. He signaled the team. New plan, silent takedown. No room for error. The door opened. 4 men walked in. Not guards, engineers. Carrying toolboxes and maintenance logs, talking among themselves about a hydraulic issue in the steering system. They saw the bodies before they saw the SEALs. One of them opened his mouth to shout. Jackson moved like water, crossed the distance in 3 steps, drove his knife into the man's throat, and lowered him silently to the deck. The other SEALs were already on the remaining 3, hands over mouths, blades finding vital points. No gunfire, no noise. 4 more bodies, 4 more problems solved. But now they were on a clock. Someone would notice the missing engineers. Someone would come looking. Jackson wiped his blade, moved back to the control panel. Window just closed. We go loud. He threw the main breaker. The engine room went black. Emergency lighting kicked in after exactly 45 seconds, bathing everything in red. But by then, Jackson's team was already gone, moving through the ship like ghosts with purpose. Elena pushed through the pane, following Jackson up a maintenance ladder toward the middeck. Her ankles screamed with every rung. Compression wraps soaked through with blood and seawater, but she didn't stop. They emerged into a cargo corridor, stacked containers on both sides, narrow walkway between them, exactly as she remembered. The lights flickered, red emergency glow painting everything the color of a warning no one had heeded. Gunfire erupted somewhere above them. Short bursts, suppressed weapons, shouts in Russian, then silence. Upper deck secure, a voice reported over comms. 3 hostiles down. Cargo team has the hold, another voice added. No resistance, running documentation now. Jackson acknowledged both, then turned to Elena. Bridge, through there, 2 flights up. She nodded toward a stairwell at the far end of the corridor. Movement. She saw him before Jackson did. Ivan, emerging from a side passage with a Makarov pistol already raised. Elena shoved Jackson left and threw herself right as the first shot cracked past where they'd been standing. She hit the deck, rolled behind a container, came up with her rifle. Ivan fired twice more, rounds sparking off steel. Then he was moving, using the containers for cover, circling toward her position. Jackson was pinned on the opposite side, unable to get an angle without exposing himself. Elena keyed her mic. Bull, I've got him. Keep moving to the bridge. Negative. We stay together. He knows I'm here. If we both go after Alexei, Ivan flanks us and we're fighting a two-front war. I handle him. You get Alexei. A pause. Then Jackson's voice tight. 2 minutes. After that, I'm coming back for you. Won't need two. She heard him move. Boots on steel. Heading for the stairs. Ivan must have heard it too, because he shifted position, trying to follow. Elena stepped out from cover and fired. 3-round burst. Center mass. Ivan twisted, took 1 round in the shoulder, dove behind a container. Blood sprayed, but he didn't drop. Didn't slow down. She moved laterally, changing position, forcing him to recalculate. Her ribs throbbed. Her vision swam slightly. The adrenaline was wearing off faster than expected, but her hands were steady. Ivan appeared 10 meters down, pistol raised. They fired simultaneously. His round went wide, sparked off a pipe above her head. Hers caught him in the thigh. He grunted, staggered, went down on one knee. She advanced, weapon up, finger on the trigger. Drop it! Ivan looked at her, blood running from his shoulder and leg. He was finished, and he knew it. But his hand didn't release the Makarov. You should be dead, he rasped. Fish food. Should have used a heavier block. His jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he might try to raise the pistol. Suicide by operator. Quick end. Instead, he let it fall. Clattered on the deck. Elena kicked it away, pulled a zip tie from her vest, secured his wrist behind his back. Tighter than necessary. He hissed in pain. That's for the waterboarding, she said. She left him there, bleeding but alive, and moved toward the stairs. The bridge was 2 levels up. Elena climbed slowly, weapon leading, ears tracking every sound. The ship groaned around her, metal settling, engines still running despite the power cut, emergency systems keeping the vessel on course, even as its crew was systematically neutralized. She reached the bridge level. The corridor was empty. A single door at the end, reinforced, sealed from the inside. She approached carefully, tried the handle, locked. Then the door opened from within. Jackson stood there, weapon lowered, expression grim. He's inside, alone, but there's a problem. Elena stepped through. The bridge was larger than she'd expected. Wide windows overlooking the deck. Control panels glowing with emergency power. Radar, navigation, radio systems. And in the center, standing beside the helm, was Alexei Volkov. He looked exactly as she remembered. Calm, controlled, hands clasped behind his back like he was posing for a portrait, except his right hand held a detonator. Captain Reeves, Alexei said, no surprise in his voice, just acknowledgement. I knew the ocean wouldn't take you, too stubborn to drown. Elena raised her rifle. Put it down, Alexei. He smiled. Or what? You shoot me? The detonator is dead man's switch. I let go, scuttling charges detonate. This ship sinks in 4 minutes with all your evidence aboard. Jackson stepped to the side, flanking, but Alexei shook his head. I see you, Commander. You move closer, I drop it early. Everyone dies. Americans love their heroic sacrifices, yes? But I think Captain Reeves has had enough swimming for one day. Elena's mind raced. Scuttling charges. He'd rigged the ship to sink rather than let them take it. Smart. Desperate, but smart. How many charges? She asked. Alexei's smile widened. Enough. Placed strategically. Hull integrity fails. Water rushes in. Ship goes down fast. Your crew is still aboard. My crew knew the risks. Jackson keyed his comms quietly. Cargo team, sit rep, on explosives. The response came back seconds later. We found 1 charge in the hold. Active timer, 15 minutes and counting. Working on defusal, now. Alexei heard it through his earpiece. His expression didn't change. Only 1? Your team is thorough. But there are 4 more. You'll never find them all in time. Elena lowered her rifle slightly, showed her palms. non-threatening. Alexei, you're not walking away from this, you know that. Ships surrounded. USS Colorado has this entire area locked down. Even if you sink the ship, you're going into the water. She paused. And unlike me, you won't survive. Perhaps, but neither will the evidence. And evidence is what you need, yes, to justify this little invasion. To tie me to the theft, to prosecute. He tilted his head. No evidence, no case. I claim diplomatic immunity, Russian trade attaché, wrongfully detained by American military aggression, international incident. We have photos, testimony. Your crew will talk. My crew is loyal or dead. She took a step forward. Alexei's thumb moved on the detonator, not pressing, just reminding her it was there. You threw me in the ocean, Elena said quietly. Tortured me for 2 days, tried to erase me. She took another step, but I came back, and now you're realizing you made a mistake. Alexei's smile faded slightly. What mistake? Thinking the ocean was on your side. His eyes narrowed. Explain. 18 minutes, 4 seconds. Elena tapped the watch on her wrist. New SEAL record. Underwater survival, combat conditions, no equipment. Your challenge was 15 minutes. I gave you 18. For the first time since she'd known him, she saw something flicker behind his eyes. Not fear, calculation. The realization that his perfect exit strategy had a flaw he hadn't accounted for. Impossible, he said, but his voice had lost its certainty. Your crew didn't think so either, but I'm standing here. They're in zip ties. She took another step. You said women give women's results. Here's my result. I survived what you said was impossible. I swam 8 miles. I fought 3 sharks. I set 2 records in 1 day. Jackson's voice came through her earpiece, confused. 2 records? Elena ignored him. And now I'm going to take your ship, your weapons, and your freedom. That's a woman's result, Alexei. How's it feel? Alexei's jaw tightened. Bold words won't disarm charges. No, but this will. She moved. Not toward him, toward the detonator. She'd been watching his grip, watching the way his thumb rested on the trigger, watching the micro movements that telegraphed intent. She was faster. Her hands shot out, fingers closing around his wrist, twisting hard. Alexei tried to pull back, but she'd already committed her weight, driving her shoulder into his chest, forcing him off balance. The detonator flew from his hand. Jackson was already moving. He caught it midair, thumb replacing Alexei's on the trigger, keeping the dead man's switch active. Alexei staggered back, reached for something at his belt, a backup pistol, small caliber, barely visible. Elena didn't give him time to draw it. She drove her knee into his gut, doubled him over, then brought her elbow down on the back of his neck. He collapsed. She was on him immediately, knee on his spine, zip tie around his wrists, pulled tight enough to leave marks. You said SEALs don't own the water, she whispered in his ear. You were wrong. Alexei's face was pressed against the deck. He tried to speak, but only managed a wheeze. Elena stood, breathing hard, looked at Jackson. He was still holding the detonator. We've got a problem. I can't put this down without triggering the charges. How long on the timer? Cargo team says 13 minutes on the one they found. If the others are synced, we've got 13 minutes to defuse or abandon ship. Elena pulled out her radio. All teams, sit rep. The responses came back quickly. Cargo hold secure. Working on defusal. Need 8 minutes minimum. Upper deck secure. All hostiles detained. Standing by. Engine room secure. No additional contacts. She looked at Alexei. Where are the other charges? He said nothing. She knelt beside him, grabbed his hair, lifted his head. You're going into the water either way. With me or alone. Your choice. But if this ship sinks, the only thing you've accomplished is drowning your own crew. That the legacy you want? Alexei's eyes were cold, hard, but there was calculation there. Survival instinct fighting ideology. Bridge compartment forward, he finally said. Forward hold. Ballast tank starboard side. He paused. And one more you'll never find. My insurance policy. Elena stood, keyed her radio. Team, we have locations. Bridge compartment forward. Ballast tank starboard. Forward hold. Move now. She turned to Jackson. I'll take the ballast tank. I know the layout. You can barely walk. I can swim. That's what matters. Before he could argue, she was gone. Out the bridge door, down the corridor, moving as fast as her damaged body would allow. The ballast tank access was below the waterline. She'd seen it during her initial infiltration, a maintenance hatch near the same vent they'd used for entry. She reached it in 90 seconds, wrenched the hatch open, dark water sloshed below, and somewhere in that darkness, a bomb was counting down. Elena didn't hesitate. She dropped through the hatch into water that hit her like ice despite the wetsuit. Submerged, disoriented for a moment. Then her training kicked in, and she oriented by touch. The charge would be attached to the hull. Magnetic clamp. She felt along the inner wall, fingers searching, counting seconds in her head. 11 minutes. Her hand found it. Brick of C4. Digital timer. Wires leading to a detonator. She pulled her dive knife, started tracing the wiring by feel. Cutting the wrong wire would trigger it immediately. Cutting the right wire would disarm it. But in the dark, underwater, with hands numb from cold and blood loss, there was no way to know which was which. 10 minutes. She closed her eyes, forced her breathing to slow, remembered every explosives course she'd ever taken. Red wire to positive, black to negative, green to timer, yellow to pressure sensor. She found the yellow wire, followed it to the junction, cut. The timer kept running. 9 minutes. She cut the green wire. The timer stopped. For a moment, she just floated there in the dark water, holding the disarmed charge, waiting to see if she'd missed something, waiting for the explosion that would end everything. Nothing. She surfaced, gasped, keyed her radio. Ballast charge disarmed. Jackson's voice came back. Cargo hold charge disarmed. Bridge compartment disarmed. Forward hold disarmed. Elena pulled herself out of the tank, collapsed against the bulkhead. That's only 4. Alexei said 5. Teams sweeping now. 45 seconds later, a voice crackled through. Found it. Main turbine housing, engine room. Timer at 4 minutes. Can't reach it without shutting down turbine. That takes 6 minutes. Elena's mind raced. Cut the main fuel line. Turbine seizes in 90 seconds. Gives you access. Risk as ship loses propulsion. Dead in water. Do it. Jackson's voice. Cutting now. Countdown. 3 minutes. Fuel cut. Turbine winding down. 2 minutes. Seal accessing charge. 90 seconds. It's a dual trigger, timer and motion sensor. If we move it, it blows. Elena keyed her mic. Voice hoarse. Freeze it. CO2 fire extinguisher. Motion sensor uses mercury switch. Freeze it solid. It can't tilt. 15 seconds. CO2 deployed. Charge frosting over. 8 seconds. Cutting green wire. The radio went silent. Then, timer stopped. All charges disarmed. Ship secure. Elena let her head fall back against the bulkhead. Let the exhaustion wash over her. It's done, she whispered. Jackson appeared in the corridor, saw her condition, immediately called for the medic. It's done, she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. We got them all. Jackson crouched beside her. Yeah, we did. You did. Her eyes started to close. 18 minutes, Bull. New record. What? But she was already fading. The adrenaline finally gone. The pain no longer distant, but immediate and overwhelming. She heard voices, felt hands lifting her, saw the ceiling of the corridor sliding past overhead. And then darkness took her, gentle this time, like falling into deep water that didn't want to drown her. Just let her rest. 48 hours later, the world was quieter. Naval Medical Center, San Diego. Private room. Clean sheets. The kind of silence that only came from being somewhere safe. Elena sat in a chair by the window, watching the sunset over the Pacific. Her ribs were wrapped properly now, her ankles stitched and bandaged. Fourth line, running antibiotics that had finally pushed back the sepsis. She'd slept for 18 hours straight after they'd pulled her off the Red October. When she woke up, the news was already breaking. Major international arms trafficking ring dismantled. Stolen U.S. Navy weapons recovered. Espionage charges filed against Russian national Alexei Volkov and 14 co-conspirators. The door opened. James Hawthorne walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed her one, then settled into the chair beside her. For a moment, neither of them spoke, just watched the light fade over the water. "They're calling you a hero," James finally said. Elena sipped her coffee. "They're calling me reckless." "Both can be true." She smiled slightly. "Admiral wasn't happy I overrode him. Admiral can file a complaint, but he won't, because you were right and he knows it." James leaned back. "Alexei's already started talking, gave up his entire network, supply routes, contacts, buyers. Turns out diplomatic immunity doesn't cover treason and espionage." "Good. Typhoon torpedoes are back in custody. Encryption devices, navigation software, everything. You saved a lot of lives." She turned to look at him. "I was thinking about Maya." James's expression softened. "Yeah. She used to say, 'Finish what you start, Storm.' Always. I thought that meant survive every mission, come home every time." Elena's voice was quiet. "But that's not what she meant." "What did she mean?" "She meant finish the mission, even if it costs you, even if it scares you, even if you have to go into the ocean with chains around your ankles and no guarantee you're coming back up." She paused. "She meant don't quit, ever." James nodded slowly. "She'd be proud of you." "I hope so." They sat in silence for another minute. Then James spoke again. "Bull came by earlier, said his team wants you on permanent rotation if you ever get tired of intelligence work." Elena laughed. It hurt her ribs, but she didn't care. "Tell him I'll think about it." "Will you?" "Maybe, after I can walk without limping." The door opened again. Jackson stepped in, followed by 2 of his SEALs. They were carrying something, a wooden plaque, custom engraved. Jackson walked over, handed it to her. "From the team, figured you earned it." Elena looked down at the engraving. "Captain Elena Reeves, Naval Intelligence, SEAL, Red October Operation." They threw her in the ocean. She brought back the tide. Below that, 2 lines. "Underwater survival record, 1804. Combat, no equipment. Cumulative operational dive time, 2300. Single day." Her throat tightened. 23 minutes? She said. "Ballast tank defusal," Jackson said. 5 more minutes submerged. That's 2 records in 1 op. Male or female, doesn't matter. You're in the history books." She ran her fingers over the letters. "Thank you," she said quietly. Jackson nodded. "You ever need backup, Captain? Any time, any place." "I will." He and his men left. The room settled back into quiet. James stood, stretched. "I should let you rest." "James," he paused at the door. "Thank you for everything, the training, the blade, the voice in my head telling me not to panic." He smiled. "That's what mentors do. We give you the tools. You're the one who uses them." "Still, thank you." He tipped an imaginary hat. "Anytime, kid, anytime." After he left, Elena sat alone with her coffee and the plaque and the sunset. She thought about the ocean, about the weight dragging her down, about the sharks and the cold and the certainty that she might not make it. But she had made it, because Navy SEALs didn't just survive the water, they understood it. respected it, used it, and when the world tried to drown them, they came back stronger. Elena set the plaque on the windowsill where the last light caught the engraving. Then she stood, slowly, carefully, and walked to the window. The Pacific stretched endlessly before her, dark now, calm, waiting. She pressed her palm against the glass. "I'm not done yet," she whispered. And somewhere out there, beneath the waves, the tide turned. 72 hours after that, Elena Reeves walked out of Naval Medical Center under her own power, limping, bandaged, but walking. James waited by his truck, arms crossed, looking like he'd been there all morning. "Where to?" he asked. She climbed into the passenger seat, winced as her ribs protested, then looked at him. "Arlington, I owe someone a visit." He nodded, started the engine. They drove in silence through San Diego onto the highway, letting the miles pass without needing words. 4 hours later, they stood in Arlington National Cemetery, Section 60, the rows of white headstones stretching like dominoes, waiting for something that would never knock them down. Elena found the stone she was looking for. Lieutenant Maya Torres, United States Navy, Navy SEAL. Born April 3rd, 1998, died September 22nd, 2024. Beloved daughter, sister, warrior. She knelt slowly, placed her hand on the cold marble, spoke quietly. "They threw me in the ocean, chained me to a block, thought that would be the end." She paused. "But you taught me something. You taught me that finishing what you start isn't about surviving. It's about refusing to quit, even when it's dark, even when you're drowning, even when every part of you wants to give up." She pulled something from her. She pressed it into the earth at the base of the headstone. "I kept my promise," she whispered. "Always." She stood. James was waiting a respectful distance back. She walked to him, and they headed toward the cemetery entrance together. Behind them, the sun, reminding everyone who'd ever worn the trident that water didn't own them. They owned the water, and the tide always, always returned. Elena stopped. They drove away from Arlington as afternoon light stretched long shadows across the road. Somewhere ahead, and more than that, she'd won. She'd set 2 records, proven every doubter wrong, finished what Maya started. Because Navy SEALs didn't just own the water, they were the water. Relentless, unstoppable, returning with the tide, again and again and again. No matter what the world threw at them, they came back, every single time. And that was a promise written not in words, but in salt and steel, and the unbreakable will of those who refuse to drown.